Absolute Batman's using Venom for the first time ever in the newest issue of his series. Absolute Batman issue 13 is finally here, and today I'm gonna be breaking down the entire issue for you guys from start to finish.
Peak fiction incoming.
But before we jump into the story, if you guys don't remember, the last issue consisted of Bruce's journey after escaping Arc M, where he was finally able to visit his mother, who was super relieved that he was still alive, but it wasn't too long before his mother revealed that Ozzy was in critical condition after being brutally attacked by Bane. So Bruce took off to the hospital without a moment of hesitation, desperate to see how bad the damage really was, only to discover that things were worse than he ever could have imagined, because not only was Ozzy in critical condition, but Harvey was as well. And even though his other friend Eddie wasn't in the hospital, he was still just as messed up as the others, because after Bane literally gouged his eyeballs out, he was fused together with a super advanced machine and pretty much turned into an extremely intelligent cyborg. And to no surprise, seeing his friends so warped and distorted made Bruce as angry as humanly possible, so him and Alfred went to one of his stash houses to begin preparing for their next encounter with Bane, but soon enough they were interrupted when something triggered the stash house's alarm system. So Alfred pulled out his minigun and him and Bruce began searching for Bane's point of entry, but it wasn't long before they realized that they weren't dealing with Bane at all. They were actually dealing with Catwoman, who chose to let her presence be known by latching onto Alfred's neck with her tail, lifting him up into the air, and then dropping him onto the ground where she'd quickly knock him unconscious before finally confronting Bruce himself. This issue, on the other hand, picks up during a flashback on a train, with Bruce holding Selena tightly in his arms after making a deal with the Falcons. Because as we've discussed in previous issues, one of the Falcons' fighters had an upcoming fight with Waylon, and neither Selena or Bruce believed that Waylon stood a chance, so they ransacked a bunch of apartments that were owned by the Falcons while stealing a bunch of their gold in the process, before only agreeing to give it back to them if they agreed to give Waylon a fighting chance. After that though, our story jumps back over to present day, with Bruce demanding Selena to tell him why she was visiting, so Selena expressed that it was because Bruce's mother Martha called her, but Bruce was convinced that she was being dishonest, stating that he'd give her one more chance to tell him the truth. But Selena swore that she wasn't lying and indicated that his mother genuinely gave her a call because he'd been missing for the last few months, before stating that she was also getting worried about Bruce's well-being, so she wanted to see if there was something she could do that would maybe help him. However, Bruce was more than certain that he could handle things on his own and didn't need her help. But as Alfred regained consciousness, Selena begged to differ, sarcastically expressing that Bruce's team was a team filled with superstars while using her tail to poke at Alfred's head. So Alfred began emphasizing that he knew exactly who Catwoman was and that she didn't possess any loyalty, but before he could even finish his sentence, Selena wrapped her tail around his neck again, implying that if she wasn't wanted, then she didn't have a problem with leaving. However, upon Alfred further stressing that letting her stay wasn't a good idea because she was somebody who just couldn't be trusted, Bruce insisted that he didn't need help making a decision because he had already decided that she was leaving immediately. After that though, our story completely shifts the tone and we realize that Bruce folded faster than a napkin at a 5-star restaurant, and there's really no way for me to appropriately narrate this, so I guess we'll just say that the two of them had a fun night of exchanging germs. Upon waking up during the next morning's sunrise though, things got a little more serious when Selena asked Bruce what they did to him at Arc M after noticing the strange markings that were lined all over his back. But not really wanting to talk about it, Bruce quickly changed the subject by asking about Selena's helmet, stating that it looked like it was running on the same technology as the helmet that the Black Mask used to wear. But Selena wasn't interested in talking about her gear the same way Bruce wasn't interested in talking about his scars, so eventually Bruce asked her if she wanted to go on a date before exchanging a few more intimate kisses. As we move forward though, we see both of our main characters leaping through the air fully strapped into their gear, because it turns out that Bruce meant going on a mission together when asking Selena if she was down for a date. And upon arriving to an old abandoned amusement park, we realized that they were trying to confront the infamous Red Hood gang in hopes of gaining new allies. But upon stepping out of the shadows, various members of the Red Hood gang immediately made it clear that neither of them were welcome there, expressing that they didn't forget about Bruce giving them orders and then going back on those orders after asking for help against Absolute Bane. But Bruce wasn't there to fight, he was there to see if they could squash the beef and start things over, stressing that him and Catwoman weren't gonna leave until they spoke with their leader. But giving him a second chance was the last thing on the gang's mind, and it wasn't long before they were running towards our protagonist at full speed while swinging various weapons. So Batman dodged their first attempts by using his bat tendrils to prop into the air, while Selena just simply jumped as high as she could. In order to take the upper hand though, after nailing the landing, Selena then whipped out her submachine gun before loading it with her tail, which also serves as an extended magazine. However, However, upon nailing every single one of their opponents, Batman started freaking out, asking Selena what she was doing because the Red Hood gang was just a bunch of rebellious kids. But even though Selena hated kids, she assured Bruce that everything was okay because she was actually only using sleeping darts. Moments later though, things took a serious turn for the worse because Bruce realized that somebody equipped with an RPG was standing on top of the Ferris wheel. So he made sure that Selena wouldn't get hit by pushing her out of the danger zone before using the venom flowing through his body for the first time ever, which made him so incredibly strong that he was able to smash into the Ferris wheel with so much force that it almost completely toppled over, which also made the RPG guy fall into the water after completely missing his target. Stunned that he was able to do such a thing, Catwoman quickly ran to his side asking if he was okay, but knowing that the state of mind he was in was neither safe or stable, he simply implied that she needed to get as far away as possible from him as quick as she possibly could. But as all the other Red Hood members began emerging from the shadows, Catwoman refused to leave her man's side, expressing that he needed to listen to her voice because he was acting like the freaking Hulk right now, and he needed to try getting things under control before things escalated for the worse. And at this point, most members of the Red Hood gang were still in favor of bringing him down, and especially after finding out that he was experimented on by Arc-M, so Bruce tried being vulnerable and honest about what he was going through in hopes of de-escalating the situation, stating that the reason he told them to stand down recently was out of fear they could possibly get hurt because the people in Arc-M were creating absolute monsters like Bane, and they almost completely broke him physically and mentally. But because he was able to persevere and they weren't able to break him, now he was determined to burn down their entire empire. And that's when the leader of the Red Hood gang finally decided to reveal themselves, along with revealing their true identity, who just so happens to be none other than absolute Harley Quinn, stating that if Bruce was really serious about bringing down Arc-M this time, then they would be willing to fight by his side. After that, we then go over to Arc-M ourselves though, as Bane continued being experimented on despite already being freaking massive. It's here that Dr. Arkham expressed that she was extremely happy with what her fellow doctors were able to achieve, indicating that they've managed to push Bane's system even further, meaning that he was now at maximum infusion, before emphasizing that they didn't even think it was possible for a human to reach these levels. Bane didn't really care about his size though, and was only concerned with recapturing Batman so Batman could replace him, which would finally allow him to go home. By the way, can you guys make sure to drop a like and comment on this video? These take me so long, dude. Anyways, Dr. Arkham was doubtful that the Joker was really gonna let Bane go, even after Batman was under their control. Nevertheless, moments later, one of the doctors at a computer station said there was something Arkham needed to see. And that's when we realized that Bruce was broadcasting a live stream across the entire city of Gotham, stating that their city was under attack by its own leaders who had already sold Gotham out to line their pockets with money. And even worse than that, they've also sold the ground beneath them, where they were creating actual monsters beyond what they could imagine. He then go on to relay that he previously attempted enlightening everybody by taking down the Black Mask, but his biggest mistake was relying on the city's networks. This time he wasn't gonna make that same mistake though, because he was gonna drag one of these monsters out into the light where everybody could see him demolish that monster. And of course he was talking about none other than Bane, calling him out to a one-on-one showdown tomorrow at midnight, and stating that if Bane was able to win this showdown, then they could turn him into anything that they wanted. And just in case anybody was wondering who the heck he was, he then expressed that he was the freaking Batman before ending the stream shortly after. Our story then brings us over to another flashback, this time with Bruce admitting to Waylon that him and Selena bribed the Falcons so he can make it all the way to the end of the 7th round, which was further than anyone was predicting him to go, which he felt was the best case scenario because on top of going out with some dignity, he'd also make enough money to open his new gym. However, even though Bruce was being honest, Waylon wasn't happy at all, stating that he didn't hire Bruce because of his skills but because they were friends, and he actually thought he believed he could win. But because that clearly wasn't the case, Waylon decided that Bruce was fired, and indicating that he wasn't going through with this Falcone deal because they were corrupt and he was gonna win the whole thing. We then go back over to one of Bruce's stash houses though, with him and Selena discussing the location of where his showdown with Bane was gonna take place. But concerned with what the outcome would be, Selena asked Bruce if he could promise not to use the venom in his body because that was exactly what the people in Arkham wanted, and she'd seen what the venom did to people in the past and promised that the risk wasn't worth it. But according to Bruce, the venom was the only way he could win because when he used it against the Red Hood gang, somehow it allowed him to see every move they were gonna make and put him 50 steps ahead. He just needed to learn how to master it. But Selena was persistent that it just wasn't a good idea, indicating that she wanted to take down Bane just as badly as he did, but not like this. However, Bruce just couldn't forget what Bane did to his friend friends, so he was going to use the venom no matter what, and if she couldn't accept that, then maybe it was time for her to leave again. Once Selena left, Alfred then began to encourage Bruce's decision because the stakes were now higher than ever, emphasizing that if Bruce slowed down even just a smidge, then he was destined to fail. He needed to bury the soft, weak man that he used to be and then rise again as the monster, because while fighting a war, the only rule was to secure the win no matter what you had to sacrifice, which is when we see none other than Killer Croc making his return because Bruce had been leaving out chests of meat for him in hopes that they could eventually make amends. But sadly, that's where this issue comes to an end. But if you guys want to see what happens with Absolute Batman next, let me know in the comments down below.